Previously, on Mass Effect 3. We entered the internet circa 1990. Today, I want to look at who actually wrote Mass Effect.
Commander, we've located the Reaper base transmitting the local signal.
Good.
And not a moment too soon. With the Reaper code upgrades, the Geth are tearing the fleet apart.
Once the signal is disabled, the Geth will pose no threat to Creator forces.
Rannoch follows a similar structure to the Tuchanka missions. One introductory mission, then a choice of 2 secondary missions to support your larger goal. After completing one of the missions, you can then start the final mission that concludes the arc. In addition to setting up our objective for the last mission, this sequence also touches on some of the points I made last mission. There's a bit about how Reaper code upgrades synthetic Geth intelligence into an authentic intelligence equal to organics. It's a scene that pathologizes difference. Because the Geth think in a different way to most other beings, they must somehow be inferior, deficient. In contrast, later on when the mission proper starts, Shepard and Legion have an exchange about identity and if the two Legions are the same or not, and this is a great moment. This mutual unintelligibility between man and machine, creator and created, a failure to communicate. I especially like the subtle recrimination that may or may not be there when Legion says, "And then we died." I mean, damn. This is the interpersonal conflict that was so desperately missing from the Tuchanka arc.
Going in on foot.
Admiral Zen developed a laser guidance system that can cut through the jamming. It's synced to the Normandy's targeting computer.
So the Normandy launches a precision strike at whatever target I have painted. That ought to do it. Edie, this work for you?
Yes, it should enable us to make a precision strike against the Reapers.
And anything else in our way?
The Geth will quickly reconfigure their jamming towers to neutralize this technology. You should not use it before reaching the base.
I've sent the coordinates for the Reaper base.
Are we clear to go?
That Geth fighter squadron is still tearing through the fleet.
Can you hold out?
If that fighter squadron isn't taken out, a lot of our ships won't make it. But we'll do what we can. This is your operation, Commander. If you want to strike now, you've got my support.
The sinking laser needs a line of sight.
So,
what's the fastest route?
intentions. You're probably all familiar with Death of the Author. I probably don't need to explain that it's a perspective that dismisses the author having some special privilege over their text and what it communicates. Damn. Anyway, once or twice in the thread, and across the forums in general, people like to use the fact that mass media products are created for a financial profit as a discussion roadblock. You know, statements like, "It can't possibly mean that," "You're overthinking it," "It's just a dumb story written to generate maximum dollars for big corporations." Now, assuming it's not a bad faith effort to derail conversation, I think that's a very sad, cynical and ahistorical way to look at things. It also leaves huge gaps in readings, because while it may well explain structure and tone and character beats, it doesn't explain the fundamental basic content. You can explain a traditional 3-act story structure by saying it tests well with audiences. Recurring characters, yeah, that's a money spinner for sure. I'm not so certain you can derive a financial motive for filling the game with intergenerational conflict, robots and aliens, colour motifs and so on. If you follow this argument far enough, you end up with ludicrous statements like, and all due respect to the original poster, everyone in Mass Effect 2 having daddy issues is just one big coincidence. Like the writers couldn't think of anything else to write about, despite having written literally hundreds of hours worth of content in other games that have nothing to do with bad dads or whatever. At some point, someone at BioWare decided that Mass Effect would be about Promethean angst, not faith and religion, or power and redemption or what have you. That's why it's there. But even so, that doesn't matter. Maybe BioWare did write Mass Effect on autopilot, but if I can still draw out all this stuff about intergenerational conflict, then it's still there. It's not invalidated just because it wasn't the author's intent, In the same way that a landscape doesn't stop being beautiful just because it's the product of thousands of years of biogrowth and natural erosion. If anything, it's more interesting because it offers an insight into our unspoken cultural biases, both mine and BioWare's.
Well, that's a start.
In fairness, I can't really blame these people for bringing up this argument. I do use BioWare says or Hudson means a lot in these videos. It's a shorthand. I don't want to use it to unduly legitimize or privilege my reading. It's just easier than saying, these are the concepts that I see expressed within this text every time. Now, it just so happens that I do feel fairly confident that my reading also reflects what BioWare actually intended to say anyway, but that's it drawn in part from external materials, interviews and such. It's also something that needs to be unpacked further because, as someone already pointed out, BioWare is not a monolithic entity. Mass Effect 3 was written by a group of individuals, some of which had oversight over several parts of the entire product, some of which contributed only to one narrow aspect out of many. It's very unlikely that all of those individuals were in complete lockstep over every part of the game. Back to Rannoch. Rannoch is also like Tuchanka because at the end of the mission we'll have to make a big decision about the future of the Geth and the Quarians. Legion will want to give all Geth the Reaper Code upgrade so they can defeat the Quarians. The Quarians will want to kill all Geth before that happens. On the one side, Tali gets her home back. On the other, the Geth are given the chance to flourish. New life or the old. Like Tuchanka, there is a golden ending. With Tuchanka, if you made the right choices in the previous games, then Rex can change the character of the Krogan race and assimilate them into a wider galactic society. With Rannoch, the system is gamified. Certain actions in Mass Effect 2 and 3, saving Admiral Zalcoris, destroying the Geth heretics, score points. With enough points, and if Tali and Legion are both still alive, then you unlock a third option in the climactic decision. Instead of choosing between the Geth and the Quarians, you can choose both. Both make peace, both survive and join forces to defeat the Reapers. I don't really agree with this. As I've mentioned before, I think choices should be interesting and difficult, different but equal. No choice should be the best choice. And for all my belly aching about how the Geth and the Quarians are portrayed, and how the Quarians come across as basically terrible and the Geth is basically innocent, none of that matters compared to the Get Out of Dilemmas card the game hands its players. Why make a difficult decision between two sort of sympathetic groups when you can just save them both and make everyone happy? That's what undercuts the tension of the Rannoch arc, that at the end of it all, Shepard can use their magic blue-red voice to negate the conflict entirely. Big questions like, do the Quarians deserve their homeworld back, and can you really trust the Geth, just don't matter. Now, I'm going to throw some wild conjecture out there. There's two competing sides to BioWare in Mass Effect 3. One of these I'm going to dub Team Hudson. The other, Team Weeks. Team Hudson is usually who I mean when I talk about what BioWare means in Mass Effect 3. I'm talking Casey Hudson, Mac Walters, Drew Karpyshyn maybe. Team Hudson is super interested in the thematic stuff, father and child, organic and synthetic, Titanomachy, Shepard as Christ, the artificial intelligence crucible that will make or break our civilization. All the juicy, high-minded stuff that I've been focusing on in these videos. Team Weeks, then, is usually who I mean when I talk about BioWare giving up or taking the easy way out in Mass Effect 3. Obviously the target here is Patrick Weeks, who's come in for a bit of a kicking in this commentary. Team Weeks is lazy and writes to satisfy the audience by giving them exactly what they want. like Rex kicking ass and Morden's melodramatic sacrifice, so sad, and cameos for every 2-bit NPC from both previous games. We're not going to see it in this playthrough, thank God, but during the Rannoch climax there's a truly awful exchange between Legion and Tali, where Legion asks Tali if he has a soul, and she tearfully replies yes, he does, and it's so blunt and clumsy and on the nose it's hilarious. Team Weeks prefers this cheap sentimentality to anything more structured or considered, and unfortunately the audience does respond to that, because it is easy and obvious and accessible straight away. You don't need to have read Frankenstein or know a bit about world mythology to feel really pumped about your favourite characters beating the bad guys and saving the day. If that sounds vaguely familiar, and it should, that's because it's the inverse of the traditional fan meta-narrative surrounding Mass Effect 3. During the ending debacle, someone claiming to be Patrick Weeks posted an inside account of the writing room dynamics at BioWare when the ending was being written. There's more to say here, but the broad strokes were that Casey Hudson and Mac Walters wrote the very intellectual and high-concept ending that everyone hated, while Patrick Weeks and the others were shut out and had to fight to get goodbye scenes for Shepard's friends at the London base camp included. I don't know how true that is. I think it is true myself, and I'm glad we got those scenes because they were good and necessary. But this anecdote has morphed in the retelling into this meta-narrative about Hudson and Walters ruining Mass Effect 3 with their artsy-fartsy esoteric bullshit, while good old Weeks just wants to tell a cracking yarn for the folks at home, don't you know? Mac Walters becomes a napkin-doodling imbecile, Casey Hudson a gel-haired empty suit who doesn't even know what a Mass Effect is. Obviously this is nonsense, there's method behind Walters' madness, and Hudson not only has a long history working on the game design coalface, but is actually the man responsible for the series in the first place. But Weeks is the one on the fanbase's side. Elsewhere on the web he said words to the effect of, I'm not really interested in saying anything for myself in my writing, I just want to give the audience what they want. And to me, that's awful. I already know what I want, I can imagine it for myself. Show me something I don't already know. It's lazy and boring, but for others, it's exactly what they want. Let's try and apply this teams framework to Mass Effect 3 in more detail. As mentioned, both Rannoch and Tuchanka have big dilemmas at their heart. Both Rannoch and Tuchanka also have golden endings, accessible via imported save states that ameliorate all these dilemmas. Players can have their cake and eat it too, because they can do the right thing and not suffer any negative consequences for it. I've already drawn the similarities between the Krogans, Solarians, Kef and the Quarians. Both are conflicts between creator races and their creations, a retelling of the Titanomachy. This is Team Hudson writing. Team Hudson sees Mass Effect 3 as a chance to explore these situations. As reflections of the larger Reaper War, Rannoch and Tuchanka set the stakes for the big central question of the game and the series. What happens when creator and created come into conflict? Does this inevitably lead to mutual annihilation? Both arcs, though, have these third options that allow the player to sidestep the conflict entirely. With Tuchanka, if Rex or Eve are in charge, then there isn't really a problem. Cure the genophage, help the Krogan, it's the right thing to do and nobody suffers for it. With Rannoch, the third option is literal. Get Tali and Legion to make peace and nobody has to die. This is Team Weeks writing. Audiences don't want to grapple with difficult ethical decisions, they want to win. They want to see the good guys get what they want and the bad guys left in the dust, because that's more comforting than an arbitrary world where it rains on the just and the unjust alike, regardless of how literary that is. More specifically, they want to be rewarded for being loyal to the series and playing through all the games to that point. And to be honest, people should be rewarded for playing through Mass Effect 1. But this undercuts the of Team Hudson writing that links into the larger direction of the game. If Shepard can just save import their way out of intergenerational conflict, then is there really a problem anyway? Artificial intelligence isn't really a crucible that will either define or destroy our civilization, a paradigm shifter that forces us to change the way we think or die. The mutual unintelligibility of Jarvik and EDI seen in the last video, where both organics and synthetics suffer from existential angst but don't realise it's something they share in common, that becomes just a matter of not talking hard enough at each other. This is something that comes up often in fan criticism of the ending. The big central question of Mass Effect is solved on Rannoch, when Shepard convinces the Geth and the Quarians to stop fighting. The error that fans make is assuming that this is because the ending is poorly written. In fact, the fault is Team Weeks undercutting the central premise of the series for the sake of a happy ending for hardcore fans. Now, to be honest, I think most of what I've just said is bunk. I doubt you can split BioWare so neatly into two camps. For starters, making large, important sections of the game depend on save game import states is a big design choice that probably came right from the top, not one individual writer. At the end of the day, Weeks and the others can only write within the parameters they're given, and those come from Hudson and Walters. They may very well have intended a third, superior option in order to foreshadow our ending choices at the very end of the game. We should also consider the DLCs, 3 of which, Extended Cut, Leviathan and Citadel, were direct responses to fan demands in the wake of Mass Effect 3's release. In that light, the idea that Walters and Hudson are dedicated solely to the purity of their artistic vision is obviously untrue. I can't be too hard on Weeks either, even if he does say some pretty stupid things about writing and Jessica Alba. He wrote Mordin, a fantastic character, and he also wrote Solus in Dragon Age Inquisition, and he was pretty cool as well. It's better to think of Team Hudson and Team Weeks as competing urges within the writers. Another shorthand. One side stands for saying something new and interesting, making people think and develop their ideas. The other stands for telling the audience what they want to hear, what they already know. I think it's fairly clear which side I vastly prefer. Not that it has anything to do with what Mass Effect 3 actually is. This battle with the Geth Primes is probably one of the toughest in the game. 3 very tough, very strong enemies whose main weakness, their speed, is negated because you begin the fight surrounded by them. BioWare scattered a few Geth Spitfire guns around as heavy weapons to help you in the fight. Unfortunately, the Spitfires are probably the worst weapons in the game, so they hinder you more than they help.
Getting anything from the base?
No. The old machines have not registered us as a threat. We recommend haste. The Creator fleet will be overrun unless you sever the Geth connection to the old machine soon.
This battle was centuries in the making. To see it finally end.
To think we can tilt the balance of power with a single shot.
Normandy's weapon systems are ready to sync to your target. I recommend you withdraw to a safe distance.
Reaper!
We have located transportation.
Copy that. Everybody, get to the ship. Move! Move!
How are we supposed to fight that thing?
I was hoping your fleet might lend a hand. Go!
We will attempt evasive maneuvers.
I remember when this was one of the first sequences previewed in the build-up to release. All the articles talked about a thrilling chase sequence where Shepard battles the Reaper using their turret. Obviously this didn't make it to the final cut, we get this rather pointless moment instead.
The firing chamber. Looks like a weak point when it's priming.
Damn it! The jamming towers have us targeting manually. We can't make a precision shot.
We may escape before it recovers.
No. Pull over.
Shepard, Commander.
If we run away, the Geth stand under Reaper control and the Quarians are dead. This ends now. Edie, patch the Quarians to the Normandy's weapon system. I want the targeting laser synced up to the whole damn fleet.
Understood.
Do you need assistance?
Just stay down, Legion. I'll take it from here.
We are not Legion.
You are today. Shepard to fleet. I'll feed the weak.
This battle on foot is definitely a change of pace. It's got great atmosphere, I'll give it that. It's also incredibly janky and frustrating. Shepard must dodge the Reaper's instant death beam attack while shooting a laser pointer at its glowing eye. Normal dodges don't work. Shepard must turn and run from one side of the arena to the other. The first few times, of course, players won't know that, and the tension ebbs away after more than a couple of retries. Still, it's a great escalation from the foot battle on Tuchanka. This is our first conversation with a Reaper since meeting Sovereign on Vermeer. There's more to say about the Reapers and what they're all about, and hopefully I'll cover that next video. What it says isn't particularly amazing, but the screen shudder when it talks is just lovely, and I really like the composition of some of the shots, especially the extreme long shot showing the two.
And what if we don't let you continue?
Have no choice.
I disagree. And so do the billions that are rising up to resist you.
You cannot comprehend the magnitude of our presence.
We might surprise you.
You represent chaos. We represent order. Every organic civilization must be harvested in order to bring order to the chaos. It is inevitable. Without our intervention, organics are doomed. We are your salvation.
You're just machines. This time the organics are taking control.
A philosophy reminiscent of the Quarians. Observe the results of their efforts to maintain control.
They're doing fine. You're the ones who should worry. Tell your friends we're coming for them. Never mind. I'll tell them myself.
We did it.
This is it, our big decision point. Since Legion is dead, we won't even be able to try to make peace between the two sides, which is a shame because the execution is actually quite good. There's a real tension that builds up during the sequence. Can Shepard, Tali and Zalcoris hold off the Quarian attack long enough for the Geth upgrade to go through? Legion's countdown, 20%, 40%, 80%, really helps too. It's actually quite exciting, even if, as a whole, the concept's a bit of a cop-out. And again, even though Legion's sacrifice is clumsy and doesn't gel well with the cooler ideas we saw in Mass Effect 2, it does make sense in the context of Legion as Shepard as Christ, dying to bring the gift of consciousness to the Geth. As it is, what we do get here is a bit boring, and a legitimate drawback to my killing off Legion in the previous game. Legion doesn't even get halfway before being stabbed in the back. It's very sad, putting him down like a dog. And there's some great shots, camera shots, but it lacks punch. Killing the Quarians is a lot more dramatic, as we get some great scenes and a sad moment where Tali commits suicide to the sound of her people dying. Great stuff. You know, artistically. In fairness, it's probably supposed to be a bit of a downer. After all, you failed to bring peace to Rannoch. And this, I think, gives us real motivation then to find a resolution to the premise of the game, the inevitable conflict between creator and created.
I'm sorry, Legion. I can't let the Quarians die.
We were correct to distrust organics. Uploading the code.
The real Legion would have understood.
Admiral, the Geth defensive line is broken. All ships, finish them off.
We'll start repairing our fleet immediately, Commander. We can also offer technical specialists to assist with the Crucible.
Thank you, Admirals.
I believe Tali would like to say goodbye as well.
Shopping for another house?
Beachfront property.
Claim it fast. It's a buyer's market. You okay? I thought you'd be happy. After all this, you can finally...
I'm not staying. I'm coming with you.
I wasn't going to ask.
I think you've earned a few favors with the fleet.
I'm asking them to launch an assault on the Reapers. Figure that makes us even.
If the Reapers were going to stay on Earth, sure. But sooner or later, they'll come to Rannoch.
We did just kill one of them.
So I'm coming with you to stop them. If you think I can help.
You can help.
Thanks. When this is all over, when I know my world is safe, then I can come home. It is beautiful, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It'll be years before we can live without our suits completely. But right now... Right now, I have this.